I dragged my suitcase out of the airport and was hit by massive billboards everywhere. Welcome back, Joshua, Sandy's first love. The whole internet was singing praises for the S Group president's 10-year wait of deep affection. A reporter excitedly shoved a microphone at me. Joshua, are you touched that Sandy has stayed single all this time for you? But I just blinked blankly. Sandy, who is that? It was only when the airport announcement started that it hit me. I was really back home. After 7 years abroad for my PhD, I finally graduated with flying colors. But stepping out of the international arrivals gate, I froze entirely. The huge electronic screens in the airport lobby showed the same image. A picture of me taken some time ago with text beside it. Welcome back, Joshua, Sandy's first love. Sandy's beloved first love. Her decade of waiting finally paying off. What's going on here? My fingers instinctively tightened their grip on the suitcase handle. Before I could react, a dozen reporters charged forward, long lenses and all, while flashes turned into a blinding white light. Joshua, what do you think of the welcome Sandy arranged for you? You know, Sandy is such a rare gem these days. A woman of such deep affection. Joshua, are you moved that Sandy has been waiting for you for a decade? These sudden questions left me utterly baffled, and I instinctively stepped back. But the reporters were excited, ready to shove microphones right into my face. So I quickly spoke up. Hold on. Are you sure you've got the right person? I don't know any Sandy. The surroundings went quiet for a moment, then exploded into even more chaos. Joshua, are you joking? Miss Sandy publicly declared you are her one and only first love. You seriously don't remember the Sandy who quietly supported you in high school? Joshua, this is kinda mean, leaving someone who's waited so many years for you. My brow furrowed deeper. Honestly, I don't remember anyone like that from high school. My school life was uneventful, just study and preparing for exams abroad, with hardly any female friends. If someone actually had a crush on me, I would at least remember something. But the pushy reporters were really getting on my nerves, so my voice went cold. Sorry, I really don't know who you're talking about. I just don't know any Sandy. And you guys suddenly coming up and snapping pictures isn't gonna fly. I have the right to hold you legally responsible. The reporters finally quieted down, looking at each other. Some even started drafting new headlines wildly. Breaking news. S Group CEO's decade-long waiting first love says he doesn't know her. What will become of this heart-wrenching love story? I used the pause from the stunned reporters to bolt out to my brother's car. I didn't notice the woman in the corner frozen by my words. She tightly clutched the frail man next to her, who bore some resemblance to me, completely ignoring his uneasy expression. Sitting in my brother Ken's car, I was still shaken. Ken handed me a bottled water, eagerly pointing out, "Geez, Sandy sure went all out. Look out the window. Drones are spelling out your name." I choked on some water and stared at the flickering lights outside, thinking they looked like surveillance dots. What kind of spell did you put on Sandy back in the day? She always got the best seat at reunions and would drunkenly call out your name. Now her boyfriend looks just like you, but always seems annoyed. I caught on to something. You said reunion? Was I in the same class with her? Ken stopped at a red light, giving me a weird look. Senior year, class 7. She sat behind you, but back then, she was just an ordinary kid. I had no clue you had an eye for potential. How did you date for so long without telling your bro? She made it big time now. She showed a love token at the school reunion. A physics notebook with both your signatures and hearts drawn on it. Ken's ribbing was genuine. Meanwhile, I was racking my brain, suddenly recalling a lost notebook from a physics competition senior year, which stressed me out so much it almost wrecked my score. I had searched everywhere for it. It was critical for the competition. I replied hoarsely. Ken's eyes widened, clearly remembering too. Is that the one from back then? I remember you cried when you couldn't find it. Wait a minute, you really don't remember Sandy? I nodded helplessly. I've said it 1,000 times, if I'd actually dated in high school, wouldn't at least one person know? So, Ken began driving as the light turned green. You really forgot her? What about the rumors in the group chat? Ken hesitated but spoke again. About dumping her before you left? What did you say? My voice shot up. Ken was startled. The classic trope where the straight-A guy dumps the poor girl, says, "Don't wait for me," but leaves a mark in her heart, motivating her to rise to be the CEO of S Group. Then she dates someone who looks like her first love. Ken rambled on, but I couldn't process his words anymore. Sandy's pursuits had become a big deal. Even my parents had heard she was someone I dumped, shaking their heads behind my back, half joking how she might make something big happen now. But the day's whirlwind had left me reeling. So I just told my parents, "Mom, Dad, just know this, I would never casually dump anyone. But there's a lot I need to get straight." After I got back to my room, I quickly searched for news about Sandy's interview. A ton popped up, almost all with my name. I clicked on one at random. The woman on screen looked beautiful, with a tinge of nostalgia in her eyes. During the hardest times, thinking of him was what kept her going. The camera cut to the host's emotional face. The video ended with Sandy saying sadly, even though he said, "We can never be together." And the top comment on the video? It said something like, "That first love overseas must be kicking himself, just waiting for the dramatic chase scene to unfold." After watching that, I dug out my high school graduation photo from a corner at home. I matched the names on the back one by one. Then, I found Sandy at the edge of the photo. Almost swallowed by the shadows, her long bangs covered her eyes, making her face hard to see. Her uniform collar was crookedly open, a stark contrast to the bright smiles of the students around her. This was completely different from the confident woman on the finance channel. But for everything Sandy mentioned in the show, I had no memory at all. I never expected Sandy's public pursuit to have such a huge impact on my life back home. For some reason, my rented apartment got its rent paid for 3 years. At the cafe where I handled work, they'd randomly offer me a little cake. It made me feel scared like never before, like I was being watched, and at the same time intensely angry. I came back not just to be with family, but to use all I'd learned to contribute to society and my country. No relationship stuff involved. The day I applied for a job, I quickly got an interview notification from the company. But when I handed my resume to the receptionist, their eyes widened instantly. "Are you Sandy's?" My heart skipped as I interrupted them, my voice suddenly sharp. "I'm here to apply for the chief researcher position, Joshua." The interview was way too smooth. Even the questions were surprisingly simple. At the end, HR adjusted their glasses, smiling warmly, almost flatteringly. "Joshua, you really don't need to go through the whole process. S Group is our biggest partner, and Sandy specifically mentioned you last week." Again with Sandy, I could feel my hands shaking from anger. "I'm a graduate from a top 3 QS ranked university worldwide, published in top-tier core journals 4 times as the first author with 2 patent projects. Are those credentials meaningless compared to some random connection?" The air in the meeting room became tense all of a sudden. The HR's plump face showed awkwardness. "That's not what I meant. It's just Sandy's instructions." I stood up. "Please tell Sandy that her actions have already affected my daily life and work. If she interferes with my career choices again, I'll report your company for discrimination and favoritism to the relevant departments. Plus, with such actions, I question whether I can expect enough growth opportunities here. This is supposed to be a mutual selection. I don't think I fit your company culture. You're better off finding someone else." As I walked out of the building, I immediately called Ken. "Any class reunions coming up?" "I was about to tell you. Sandy booked out a restaurant the day after tomorrow. I'll be there and have a proper talk with Sandy about spreading rumors about me." I cut Ken off. Sensing my mood, Ken wrapped up the call with a few quick words. On the reunion day, I arrived early on purpose. Yet, I underestimated some people's enthusiasm. Apart from a few close friends, most people's attention was on me and Sandy's gossip. "Did you know Sandy's coming?" I've never seen such a devoted woman. Back then, Sandy wasn't noticeable in class. Who'd have thought there'd be such a deep story with our top student? "If you two get back together, remember my invitation to the wedding. Kick out that stand-in hanging around Sandy. I've never liked her, with a face similar to Joshua's, and won't stop clinging to Sandy." I slammed down the bubble water Ken handed me onto the table, making a loud noise. I've never talked to Sandy. Other than being old classmates, we have no connection. Don't spread baseless gossip. It's slander. The surrounding area went silent. The music suddenly changed tracks, some obscure love song about broken mirrors and reunions, which only annoyed me more. Playing the high horse, someone muttered from the corner, quickly drowned out by the incoming flood of phone notifications. I was sure it was some chat group without me, buzzing like crazy. The private room door suddenly opened. Sandy, dressed to impress, walked in holding the hand of a guy. The guy wore a shirt almost identical to the one I had in high school, mimicking my gestures from back then. Sorry I'm late. Got Jason his favorite chestnut cake. Sandy scanned the room, avoiding eye contact with me, yet the move felt deliberate. Jason kept his head down, ears flushed red, but I didn't overlook the tears in his eyes after a quick glance at me. Whoa, Sandy, aren't you gonna introduce him? Somebody broke the silence. Jason, my fiancé. Sandy finally seemed to notice me, a challenging curl on her lips. Some things you just can't wait for, and some people aren't worth waiting for. Now I've found true love. My expression turned cold as I stared at Sandy. Sandy looked back at me, perhaps not seeing what she wanted in my expression, tightened her grip on Jason's hand suddenly. The boy gasped lightly, but Sandy didn't notice. People were trying to lighten the mood since the tension was high. The room got lively again as drinks flowed. Sandy sat at the main seat, with Jason stuck to her side like a decor piece. Every time someone tries to chat with me, a voice from the other side suddenly gets louder, discussing some million-dollar project, and they look at me with a knowing glance. Suddenly, a classmate who's had a bit too much knocks on their glass. That's what I'm saying. Some guys don't know what's good for them and don't look down on the young. Sandy's so deep in her feelings. Anyone else would have been moved to tears already. Could it be that someone who couldn't make it abroad heard about Sandy's success and came back trying to steal her away? I made a noise with my utensils. I stood up. Really? From the start, I wanted to ask Sandy, someone as clueless as me is getting special attention from all your partners. Why did I see those big posters at the airport? Why was a 6-month lease on my apartment suddenly paid up for 3 years? And why did someone suddenly send me tiramisu? I have evidence for all of it. Should I show Sandy? All the whispers suddenly stopped. Sandy's wine glass suspended mid-air. There was a flicker of panic in her eyes, but she quickly composed herself. Just helping an old classmate, and besides, I have true love now with Jason. I directly called out Sandy's lies. Since you told everyone we had something, I have a few questions for Sandy. Please answer directly. First, when exactly did we start dating? Since you're so devoted, you should know the exact date. Second, when did we ever have meaningful conversations, and where's our couple photo? We've been together for so long, we should have at least one photo, right? Third, you're acting all romantic, but I didn't die, I just went abroad. Why didn't Sandy, who's now worth millions, buy a plane ticket to see me? Jason, who was sitting right next to Sandy, suddenly started coughing violently as if he was choked. But Sandy, turning to him with a grim look, said something that made Jason's face pale. He didn't dare move. Guys, I turned to look at my astonished classmates. I don't know what story Sandy cooked up that made everyone believe her. The truth is, until last week, I didn't even remember such a girl in our class. Now she's using my name, playing up this deep love story, getting a stand-in, and as soon as I'm back, there are confessions, sneaky photos, and privileges. Enough. Sandy slammed the table, scaring everyone around. But she just looked at me hysterically. Why did you write lucky to know someone like you in your physics notebook? That was just part of a dictation exercise. Everyone did it. I was shocked by Sandy's twisted logic, completely losing control of my emotions. I kept taking deep breaths as Ken comforted me worriedly. I gently waved off Ken's hand, giving him a reassuring look, then turned coldly back to Sandy. Everyone here today is a witness. If you show up in my life again, I'll make sure everyone knows your so-called decade of deep love is just a stalker's fantasy. I'll also gather evidence through legal channels. To those thinking about spreading more rumors, go ahead and try. Then I left the room without looking back. I heard the sound of Sandy angrily smashing things behind me. Maybe what I said that day worked. The next day, All the news about Sandy's first love vanished without a trace. When my parents found out, they were shocked and furious. I learned that while I was away, Sandy even visited my home several times posing as a girlfriend. I suddenly realized how terrifying someone like Sandy could be. I rushed to hire a few female bodyguards for my protection. I paused my job search plans. If I didn't deal with this lunatic Sandy, my future wouldn't be peaceful. While I was thinking about what to do, a text came from an unknown number. Tomorrow at 3 p.m., Rainforest Alley Cafe. I'm Jason. Hope you still remember me. Jason, the stand-in Sandy kept? I almost didn't recognize him when I saw Jason, small and thin, wearing just a loose t-shirt with bruises on his neck. He wasn't trying to look like me, and that's when I realized we looked nothing alike. You actually came. Aren't stand-ins in books usually the evil side characters? Aren't you afraid I'm provoking you? I shrugged. I've hired bodyguards now. Sandy would have a hard time even getting close to me. I glanced at Jason's bruises and frowned. How did you get hurt? That question seemed to open a floodgate, and Jason in front of me was both crying and laughing. Joshua, do you know what's in her basement? There are 372 secret videos of you, over 3,000 photos, from high school until you returned home. He inserted a trembling USB into my laptop, and the shocking contents made my stomach turn. I didn't even know when these were taken. I could feel my body trembling. Why show me this? Because now she's watching me. Jason's voice rose, sharp and high. Ever since you returned, she goes to the basement every night to watch those videos, forcing me to imitate you even more. At first, I loved her, and I needed the money, so I did everything. It just gave her more reasons to hurt me. During the reunion, she caught me looking at you, and afterward, she said someone like me isn't worthy to look at her first love. Jason pulled up his t-shirt, revealing bruises and bite marks. It was horrifying. I suddenly realized the situation might be worse than I thought. Jason's broken voice continued. My grandma's in the late stages of cancer. She thinks I'm tutoring. She can't see this. It's my fault. I shouldn't have gotten involved with such a crazy person for love or for my grandma's treatment. When I got involved with her, I wasn't even an adult. Jason was very emotional. I didn't know how to comfort him. I stayed silent for a long while. We can work together. Jason looked up like he got burned. Do you know how powerful Sandy is now? We want to change the situation, and compromising or hiding isn't the best strategy. Jason shook his head in fear. He looked like Sandy had really put him through the ringer. If you want to fight back, you've got to find bigger money or backers. All those capitalists love trading sex and power. We'd be toast. I chuckled. Who says the backer and capital have to be men? I pulled up a picture of a European man from my computer. He's nearly 6 feet 3 inches, with sharp short hair and piercing gray-blue eyes staring coldly at the camera. Felix, a friend I made abroad, just made it into the Fortune 500 ranked companies recently. Sandy built her empire from scratch. But do you think she can handle someone like him with deeper roots abroad? At the end of the day, it's just because we're not strong enough. Jason stared at the guy, eyes widening suddenly. I've seen him on the news. He once snatched a huge deal away from Sandy. Sandy lost it at home over that, saying she'd never expected a man to be the one to outwit her. I smiled. He's coming next week for business, and he's asked me to dinner. So, wanna team up? You gotta get in the game to turn the tables. So, your plan is to get me to partner with S Group, then find a way to break her fund chain, and get this guy to report her for illegal detention? Felix raised his eyebrow after hearing our plan. I nodded. Sex abuse, illegal confinement, and spying enough to lock her up for decades. Felix cut me off. Naive. You think someone who was a nobody in high school and now has billions before 30 did so legitimately? I was stunned for a moment, but caught on quick. You're saying her company funds are shady to begin with? Felix gave me an approving look and pulled up some data on his computer. Sandy's company is applying to go public with a valuation close to $1 billion. But nearly 40% is dirty money. So, your plan with this guy seems too soft to me. Just throwing her in jail is too easy. Someone this arrogant needs to watch her empire crumble before rotting in a cell. Felix finished his fruit and elegantly dabbed his lips. Suddenly, he seemed to recall something. Can Jason access her financials? Jason, shocked by Felix's ruthlessness, realized if he wasn't tough, he couldn't be on par with the capitalists. He wasn't too savvy with this stuff, just waiting for instructions. Sneakily called on, he stammered. It's possible, but she's been watching me closely. Could be risky. Felix nodded, that works. You don't need full content, just a lead. My guys can trace it back. Jason opened his mouth, wanting to ask why Felix would help them. Yet Felix seemed to read his thoughts. I despise her kind. I was about to speak again when Ken's call went crazy. Joshua, check the trending news now. I grabbed my phone, froze in shock. Sandy's first love's private photos. Return of the first love turns out to be a gold digger. Poor Sandy. Clicking on the trending video showed Sandy, looking worn out, faintly smiling through a media mob. Please don't blame Joshua. Kids make mistakes, maybe he buckled under foreign pressure. I ask media friends, don't spread these pics. He means a lot to me, reputation's crucial for a man. Then, it switched to blurry bedroom photos, those profiles eerily resembled me, but all the women were different. A strange text buzzed in. Sandy. Joshua, I know we have misunderstandings. I believe you're not that guy. Remember to come by? I'm your only help. Always love you, Sandy. I shook with fury. So this is what Sandy was up to this whole time? These photos are photoshopped. It's not even. Felix gently pressed on my angry hand. Of course, you don't need to prove anything to me. But I could feel Felix's aura grow colder. He was pissed. He smirked sharply. They really underestimate people resorting to cheap slander campaigns. We've found so many of her financial loopholes. Why play such a childish game? But Jason was worried about the current situation. So what do we do now? Stick to the plan. Felix lit a cigarette. I've seen tons like her, thinking they've got you by your reputation. Now's her peak moment of cockiness, thinking Joshua will beg her for a way out. Now's when she's off guard. We didn't pay much attention to the trending drama after. Sandy, not seeing me show up, was enraged. Texts from that anonymous number became more frequent. All gross, sweet nothings and threats. She seemed to try finding me, not knowing I had protection lately. Infuriated, Sandy turned her wrath toward Jason. He was similar to me but lacked my social standing, satisfying her bullying urges. But before she could rage, her company fell apart. Felix aggressively poached Sandy's projects, under the guise of entering the domestic market. Left her petty contracts, which yielded no profit or were riddled with issues, forcing Sandy to pour money into fixing them. She started with nothing, and though she now had allies, their relationships were profit-driven, leaving her lacking their aid. Sandy was beyond stressed, juggling multiple crises. Jason heard of her coming home to smash things and curse Felix, clueless of how she ticked off that kid. But Felix merely laughed it off. Well, thanks for the compliment, I guess. The S Corporation was on shaky ground and soon started to decline. Sandy ended up practically living at the office to handle the company's issues. This gave Jason the opportunity to dig through Sandy's study for documents. There's a safe with a password hint. The days we were in love. Joshua, do you have any idea? I was holding the walkie-talkie, totally stunned. How would I know? I've never even been with her. Felix frowned, sensing something wasn't quite right. This was a rare opportunity. If Sandy caught on, it wouldn't be so easy to bring her down later. Tell the kid to think hard if that vile woman had anything she really cherished. There might be a clue there. Jason thought for a while. Suddenly, he remembered a very old notebook Sandy used to look at every day. He recalled and fetched it. June 20th, 2015. It rained today, and I didn't have an umbrella. I got soaked. Then he glanced at me, walked over, and handed me an umbrella, saying softly, "Here, take it," and then walked away. I'm familiar with those eyes. He must like me. Every page after that was full of your name, heavily underlined. Jason's voice grew louder, laden with disdain. So disgusting, claiming someone likes her just from a glance. Felix and I exchanged looks of mutual disgust but quickly pulled ourselves together. Jason, this is probably the combination for the safe. Try it out. There was a click on the other end, seemingly the sound of it opening. Found it. Information on offshore accounts. And an old piece of men's underwear. I'll try to copy more files. Remember to keep watch for me. The S Corporation was investigated. When Sandy heard, she was in a bar, picking out men who looked like Joshua. She was thrilled to find another guy whose lips resembled his. But this guy's eyes couldn't compete with Joshua's, just a social climber's sly gaze. She viciously grabbed his hair, and the guy yelped in pain. Sandy imagined the scream as Joshua's, and she laughed. She doctored those photos. Joshua must be suffering now. Serves him right for pretending not to recognize her. She wanted to give her Joshua a bit of punishment. Sandy was lost in the fantasy of her first love, falling from grace and needing her, when the bar manager frantically urged her to get lost. She only then realized what was going on outside. The company was seized, the cash flow cut off, and even her home was raided by the police. They found loads of treasured photos of Joshua in the basement, along with videos of other men being abused, many of whom were minors. But Sandy's first thought was, who do those lowlifes think they are to look at the beautiful photos she took of Joshua? Thinking of this, Sandy staggered out. She didn't even make it out the bar door before being handcuffed by the police. Screaming like a beast, she ordered everyone not to touch Joshua's photos. The disgusted looks from people reminded her of that rainy night. Indeed, only Joshua understood her. The day S Corporation completely collapsed, Sandy's news was everywhere. Once a young CEO preserving herself for her first love, turned out to be a twisted voyeur, committing all sorts of crimes to rise to the top. The real powers behind Sandy distanced themselves at the first sign of trouble, pinning all the blame solely on her. I felt quite unnerved watching the news. I initially thought Sandy was just a obsessed lunatic targeting me. But it turns out her crimes went beyond sneaky photos and rumor-mongering. Yet, it kind of made sense. Though Sandy was a rising star in the market, how could she pull all this off alone? Undoubtedly, she made some deal with darker powers that turned her into a puppet. The police station called again, saying Sandy was making a huge fuss in jail, demanding to see me. I sighed, then decided to see her after all. Curiosity got the better of me. I wanted to know why this person, long forgotten, saw me as her first love. And so I went to the prison. Sandy, in her prison uniform, appeared much leaner than on TV, dark circles under her eyes. This pitiful look somewhat reminded me of Sandy in the graduation photo. She was acting high and mighty, reprimanding the guards. But seeing me, she nearly threw herself against the glass, palms pressed tightly as if she could touch me. Joshua, only you came. I frowned, you summoned me. I'm here to confirm something. Sandy's lip twitched into a fawning smile, like she was parading her most humble self. Junior year, during the rain, you gave me an umbrella and gazed at me affectionately, telling me to keep it. I frowned, trying hard to recall. I vaguely remember a rainy night. I rushed out with Ken to catch a class, lending a classmate my umbrella, then leaving with Ken. The classmate didn't leave a strong impression, just that it was someone in my class. The memory was so fuzzy, I had no recollection who I lent the umbrella to. Besides, lending things to classmates was as normal as can be. Were you that classmate? Sandy stared at my expression, seeing only a vague impression, genuinely forgotten. Determined not to give up, she tried again. What about the spring sports day? You fell in the 800 meters, and I was the first to help you. My eyes widened, starting to think this woman wasn't quite right. I spent high school prepping for study abroad, never participating in sports. You're lying. Sandy suddenly raged, only to switch to a pleading expression. At the graduation party, you wore a white suit, and I sang for you, bringing you to tears. We skipped class to catch a movie together, you held my hand, and we kissed and hugged. Joshua, I know I scared you a bit lately, but you can't deny we had a great time together. I don't blame you for leaving me and going abroad without saying a word, but I've missed you so much. Jason is just a stand-in for you, and with him it was all just a charade. I know you don't think much of me, so I worked really hard, doing everything I could just to make you notice me. I suddenly stood up. I felt an intense sense of disgust from being falsely accused. You're really not normal. I had to report early for studying abroad, so I didn't even attend the graduation party. What love? What kiss? It's all in your imagination. That's not imagination. Sandy was extremely agitated, looking like she wanted to burst through the window at me. The prison guard held her back, but she kept struggling. You forgot. It's okay. I remember it all. I remember you slowing down every time you passed by, sneaking snacks into my desk, and telling me we should take the college entrance exam for the same university. Joshua, when I'm out of here, I can make a comeback and we can buy a big house. I finally realized Sandy isn't normal. She's been building a story in her head that never existed, and I unfortunately became the first love in that story. I can't communicate with someone like that and don't see a reason to try. So I stood up to leave. What you need most now is to have someone in there get you a psychiatrist. Also, after all the horrible things you've done, hurting so many guys, there's no way you'll ever get out. Get used to that cell. There was a boom, like a part of Sandy's faith crumbled. She slammed against the glass, her voice turning into a non-human howl. Bastard! How could you not remember? It was all true. It was true. The guards rushed in to restrain the raging Sandy, while she cried and shouted, Joshua, look at me, look at me. No one else will love you like this in the whole world. I didn't turn back, couldn't bring myself to. Time passed like water. Sandy's story, along with her crimes, became a hot topic for quite a while. After all, handsome, from rags to riches, deeply rooted love are labels that stick in people's minds easily. Business elite's other side, a decade-long stalker, beware of those delusional crazies. The headlines in the media got more and more exaggerated. Whether it was netizens or people who once envied Sandy, they all said they'd been wrong. My parents and close friends were really worried about me, constantly checking on me. Especially my brother Ken, who hugged me and cried after knowing what happened, saying he was completely fooled by Sandy. I never had much interaction with Sandy, so although it was a bit shocking, I quickly returned to my usual life. But Jason was different. He never dated anyone again, poured himself into work, and after work, he took care of his sick grandma. Sadly, less than a year after the incident, his grandma passed away. I went to her grave, bringing a bouquet of white chrysanthemums. Jason had put on a bit of weight, wasn't as skinny as before, but there was still that unshakable gloom in his eyes. I hugged him. Jason looked at me gently. That crazy girl wasn't wrong about one thing. You really were my first love. If it wasn't for you, I don't know how long I would have stayed under her Stockholm Syndrome. I didn't say a word, just squeezed his hand. Remember to live for yourself. Sandy's epilogue. We all need some fantasies to live, right? When Dad beat me when he was drunk, I fantasized I was somebody big and strong, knocking this drunkard out easily. When classmates looked down on me, I imagined I was a rich heiress. In my mind, I'm actually a genius. One day, these people will be begging at my feet. Joshua was the only one ever nice to me, handing me an umbrella, and I still remember the mixed scent of rain and his fresh laundry smell. It was different from everyone else, a clean smell. So he became a regular in my diary. I wrote about his fair face, tall frame, always excellent grades, and over time in my diary we were together. I know it was all my fantasy, but I relished the feeling. Only when I was with the Joshua in my diary did I feel alive. But then Joshua graduated and went abroad. I guess he thought I was just someone going nowhere too. So I worked really hard, mingling with influential people. All of them had dirty hands and they needed a scapegoat, so I volunteered. I tried telling our story with Joshua, not expecting everyone to cry over it. My unspoken love was finally seen and accepted by people. I pushed forward with my business, sending minors to these people's rooms, smuggling goods, cleaning up after hit and run rich kids. Do I feel guilty? Other than Joshua, everyone else is just passing by. Eventually, I did succeed. Even those who treated me as invisible or dirt in high school had to show respect. From that point, my fantasy with Joshua became real. Someone as superb as me, there's no reason we couldn't have been together. But I really miss him. Why is he ignoring me when I'm so successful? Is he mad at me? Then Jason appeared. He looked the most like Joshua, obeyed my every word, and around him, I felt an unprecedented sense of superiority. But the next day, when Jason looked at me timidly, I was filled with rage. Joshua's eyes were always confident. He never would have looked at me like that. I found many who were beneath me but bore some resemblance to Joshua, yet none were him. When Joshua returned, I threw a grand welcome party. Watching his usually confident self look shocked and helpless amidst the wall of reporters, I knew I had to save my prince. As for Jason, a stand-in, it was high time he knew to step aside. But Joshua only looked confused, saying he didn't remember me. How could he? How could he forget? After all those sweet times, does he still look down on me? When I fully woke up, I was lying on the cold bed of a prison cell. This dream was far from reality. I'd already made it big, living happily with Joshua. How could I be lying in a place like this? I forced myself back to sleep, praying this nightmare would end soon. Joshua's waiting at home for me,